Hello and welcome again to It's Tea Time with my good friend Tony Westwood and myself, Neville Gaunt. Now we're up to our penultimate episode before the Christmas break. And we're going to be talking about endgame. Do you have an endgame? Do you even know what an endgame is? And I'm not just talking about on the golf course, but I'm also talking about business, of course. We have come along quite a long journey so far in the last several weeks. We've also covered the Masters. We've had Peter Allis, sadly, the voice of golf, dying as we've been demonstrating some tips and techniques for you to do on the golf course. So he's smiling at us from up there somewhere. And as I say, we've covered a lot of ground, Tony, haven't we? We've been through the first tee nerves, we've been to strategy, we've been to course management, we've been to who turns up. And today we're going to talk about endgame. So, Tony, over to you. Endgame. Do your golfers know what an endgame is? Have they got a strategy?
Well, I'd like to think so. Although, unfortunately, the emotional rigors that generally crop up, or the gremlins as we'd call them, as they crop up during the round of golf, they kind of make the head go foggy, don't they? So we start off with great intentions, and then all of a sudden we've started to repeat the things that we've always done before because we know we've always done them before, and all of a sudden we're just running the same old patterns, and we lose our focus on what it is we're trying to do as we go out and play. And the same applies in the business arena as well. For me, the end game, the golfer, we talked about the first tee nerves right in the very first episode, and how do we get focused on what we need to do. I explained that I've been playing the game now for nearly 50 years, and 35 years of those have been a golf pro. And I still get nervous on the first tee, but I have a strategy, a process that I go through, which helps me understand what I need to do. But the biggest challenge certainly I've had, and lots of golfers have, is as you get closer to the hole. Last week we talked about the short game. And what golfers tend not to realise is that a fairway is quite wide. You can stand there, you can hit a tee shot on the fairways fairly wide. And if you laid a golf ball side by side, you'd fit, several hundred golf balls across the width of a fairway. When you look at the size of the green is pretty big. You could cover a green with an awful lot of golf balls. And then comes the task of getting the ball into the hole once you're on the green. And as the target gets smaller, then golfers tend to focus on how is it going to go in at all? Can I get close? Can I relax? Do I understand what I'm looking at when I'm looking at the green? So it's really the pressure begins to build. And in my own personal game, the challenges I've had have been when I've got closer to the green, in terms of the pressure that built up, the tension that built up. And once a pattern starts, that pattern, as the pressure increases, you just learn to repeat it, unfortunately. And it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, a lot of commitment, a lot of understanding to really work around those things. I'd say it's taken me about 10 or 15 years to really build up a short game and a putting regime which actually works for me. Now, an awful lot of golfers tend not to be able to do that, or they spend a lot of time Googling things, don't they, on the internet, looking for solutions on the internet, hoping that one article was written for them, without really understanding what it is that's going on inside the brain. And the key thing for me is, once we get to this point where we're on the green, we're looking at getting the ball into the hole, is that space between your ears, that 5.5 inches between your ears, is what is running the show. It's driving everything. And if we can begin to understand how that's working, how these things manifest themselves, you talk about darters. Eric Bristow was one of the world's best darters. had to stop playing darts because he got a thing called dartitis, which is the yips in darts, where they're trying to throw the dart and they just can't let go. Now, this is something that he's been doing since he was a kid, going to the working men's clubs with his dad. You know, it's something that he's done every single day and got very, very good at. And then one day something happens, and I think the key thing is that you latch on. You tend to latch onto it emotionally. You give it some meaning, and when you give it some meaning, that meaning grows, and we build a belief. Yeah, I think one of the best ideas I've understanding of what a belief was, he said it's like a tabletop, and the more you focus on it, that tabletop, you give it legs, and the more you focus on it, the bigger and stronger the legs get, and you can't put the tabletop down. It becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, and you really cannot let go of that idea of what's going on. So the darter can't let go of the dart, and the guy trying to hold the putt notices these involuntary movements or actions, as I call them, as they're trying to make the putt. And you can see that the putter works like a snake. You know, it's really amazing to see how things are happening. So yeah, it really does become a challenge for many, many golfers, because the hole is so small and they're now trying to get the ball into that hole. So yeah, it's fascinating really to watch golfers go through that.
It is, and you and I watch this all the time. You know, many a time you and I have been walking around golf courses just watching people get the heebie-jeebies as they get onto that putting green. And just want to pick up one thing. You say it's a habit, and it's a habit that it's an emotional connection, and it's that emotional connection that can either kill us or it can make it really successful. And you know, you mentioned darts, and there are so many other analogies. I mean, I know someone that I've been coaching recently that has this fear of driving through an amber light because they know it's going to go red.
Yeah.
And it's this, and I sat in the car and I said, well, just show me, and we're just going to go drive around. And they're looking ahead. So they're a really good driver. They're looking ahead and they're planning, and they see the green light on for quite a long period of time. They obviously know where they are. They've done this journey many, many times. And she slowed down, not realizing that slowing down on a 50-mile-an-hour dual carriageway that is really quite busy. If you hit the brakes, you know, 300 yards before the lights, and by the way, the lights are still green at this time, it's going to have a consequence to the people behind you. No thought for that in her mind. It was, that's going to turn red. I don't want to go over a red light. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It will turn red eventually. And even though you've been down this road many, many times, you ain't that perfect. You cannot judge when that's going to change. That's why there's an amber filter. So it's that lack of focus that the amber's there to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been deliberately put there to help you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in that scenario, it's very much a case of, you know, when you look at it in a golf context, and what's important when I'm coaching is I want to understand the person, because their understanding is that they are only like this on the golf course. Well, actually, no, they're not. They're doing this in other parts of their life as well. They just haven't realized it quite the same way. So we create this scenario. Well, what if that happens? And then we create another scenario. If that happens, then that's going to happen. And we normally end up with something like, well, that means I'm rubbish and I can't play the game of golf, or I can't putt, or I can't chip, or I can't hit my driver. So it really becomes understanding that what if can be very, very powerful in terms of helping you learn and move forward, but it can also be very debilitating in terms of paralyzing you and stopping you from performing at your best, wherever you are. So it's very much getting focused on what do I need to do now and keeping it simple. Now, the interesting thing where it happens, you talked about the scenario there about driving the car. And it's when the environment is the same that things tend to crop up more. So, you're standing on a tee looking down a fairway and the hole is a different shape. The weather might be different. There's all of those different elements that are there. You might be hitting a different club because the wind is slightly different today, or the ground conditions are different. Your second shot is very rarely from exactly the same place than you did last week. So that's a little bit different. You might be using a less club or more club. So that environment is different. It's when you get onto the green, you take your putter out, the putter that you use more than any club in the golf bag as you go around the golf course. You're standing on this very short grass. You're looking at this hole that might be fairly close or might be a long way away. And you become hypnotized into repeating what you've done previously because that environment is very much the same. I missed the last putt, right? And it was this kind of length. So why am I going to get this one? I think the classic thing is, I explain to my golfers now before they go out to play is time on the putting green is used to get the speed of the green, because that's what's important. You can only hold putts if you know the speed of the green, because once you know the speed of the green, you can understand how gravity will affect the ball as it rolls along the green, because golfers have probably noticed that greens aren't like snooker tables. They're not dead flat. They've got slopes and everything in. So to understand the pace of the green helps you understand how much the ball might bend. If you hit it too hard, it won't bend as much, or it'll bend too late. And if you don't hit it hard enough, it will bend too much and won't actually reach the hole. So establishing the speed of the green is key. But I still watch loads and loads of golfers standing on the putting green with 3 golf balls, hitting putts from 10 and 15 feet and watching them miss. Missed, missed, missed. Oh, we'll have another go. Missed, missed, missed. And every now and then they might get one, which is great. And they feel buoyed up with the fact, that's okay. But they've missed more putts than they've holed. So they play the first hole of it, a nice drive, a nice second shot on the green. And now they're 10 or 15 feet away from the hole. And their eyes have just been watching them miss 90% of the putts they've just hit from this distance on the green. How are they going to be successful if their most recent memory is missing putts from this length? We've got to be creating an environment where we can be successful. We can move forwards and build and learn, not an environment where golfers end up beating themselves up all the time. And I think that really is the key thing. It's creating the environment where I understand what's happening and I can control what's happening as much as I possibly can. And if you can do that, that's great. I'm in the process going into the new year of creating some ball markers for my golfers. I've had the idea in my head for quite some time now. And it's based around my understanding of kind of how hypnosis works and how we can program ourselves to be successful. And I get golfers to run through the head a very, very simple little scenario. And it'd be great to get some of the guys and the ladies who are listening to this who do play golf to go and try this. So you've assessed where the ball is, you've understood the speed of the green and how much you might break. And then you just answer 3 very simple questions. So you ask the question and you answer the question. Very, very simple. You don't have to do it out loud. You can do it in your own head, because that's where most people are having the conversation with themselves anyway. And the questions are simple and the answer is always the same. Number 1, do I know the line? Number 2, do I know the pace? Number 3, can I do it? Very simple. Okay. Now, I haven't met a golfer yet who's going to start to answer, do I know the line? No. Do I know the pace? No. And can I do it?
Yes.
No.
It's not likely to happen, is it?
So all we do is we focus on, do I know the line? Yes. Do I know the pace? Yes. Can I do it? Yes. Because why wouldn't you want to do that? That's what you're aiming to do.
Yeah.
So why would you try and undermine your ability to be able to do it by giving yourself a negative answer or negative understanding about what's about to happen? Yet that's exactly where golfers are and what they do.
And it's interesting, as you said, the whole purpose, we have a driving range, where we can go on it's not called the putting range for a very simple reason. You don't get the putter out on a driving range. There is a special place given to all golfers. I mean, I don't know a golf course that hasn't got a practice putting green. It's almost like, what do you want for breakfast? Egg on toast. It's the two things come together, or beans on toast. There is definitely going to be a putting green. Why is it there? It's not actually to help you putt the ball in the hole. It's there for a simple reason, to assess the pace of the greens. And it always amazes me that people are just trying to. I mean, I put 3 tees down. I just put 3 pegs down in a line, and they're about 8 feet apart. And I try and judge the pace of the green. I'm not even looking for is it swerving away. Because the greens in real time are going to be very different to the curvature of the putting green. I mean, that's life.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of the game, isn't it? That's the challenge. But the number, as you say, the number of people that go out there and they putt and miss, and they take that miss concept straight to the first tee. You're going to remember. We can't make you forget this. You will remember it.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the key, isn't it? It's that memory that is our biggest downfall. In many respects, what we're saying is don't even remember the good shots you've made.
Yeah.
Because they're irrelevant too.
Yeah, I read this quote the other day. I can't remember who it was attributed to, but I picked this up the other day, and it sums up exactly what we've been talking about through this series. And we could change the word athlete to anything that we're going to do. We've all met people in walks of life who maybe we consider shouldn't be in that role. They should find there is a role for them somewhere, but you know what? It's not exactly that role. And I think this sums up it absolutely perfectly. It says, athletes who do not understand the importance of mental control after a shot tend to react emotionally based on the result of the shot. If the shot is good, they are happy. However, if the shot is poor, most people tend to negatively reinforce the shot by thinking about what they did wrong. We tend to become what we reinforce. Reacting negatively to a bad shot by focusing on the problem and not the solution improves the chances of repeating the error.
Brilliant.
And I think that sums it up.
Yep.
Absolutely perfectly. What we've been talking about every step of the way. Every golf shot is the same. You get to choose, you said in the introduction, who shows up. Do you want that person to show up, or that who is you right now, who's carrying all of that baggage of all of the rounds of golf, all of the shots you've played, or do you want to stand there fresh with the excitement and understanding of what could possibly happen? I mean, for me, every golf shot is an opportunity to be successful. I can't say it was always like that. When I was competing full time, I was just like the athlete who I've just talked about within that little statement there, that little quote. But now I know there's a different way. And this golf shot I'm about to hit could be absolutely perfect. Now that's exciting. That really does get the adrenaline and the juices flowing. And that's what it's all about. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to be successful, and it's still an opportunity to learn. And if we can really begin to do that, wherever we are on the golf course, you were talking about the end game today, but when you're standing on the green, We talked last time about if you're within 100 yards of the hole, you can hit the ball that distance. There's every chance you can hole it. Well, if you're on the green, you're now closer to the hole than you were when you were 100 yards away. There's even more chance you can hole it, but you need to give yourself the opportunity to hole it. It's quite interesting when you listen, you ask golfers, that maybe they've not hit the best shot onto the green, they've got a long putt, 25 or 30 feet or something, and I say to them, I says, okay, what you're looking at doing here? I'm just going to concentrate on getting it close. I said, oh, brilliant, good. So you're aiming to miss then? Well, what do you mean aiming to miss? I said, well, you said you want to get it close. So how close is close? So is close a foot or 2 feet? If you get close to being within a foot of the hole, you could be 2 feet away. So you've got to be happy. Oh, no, I wouldn't be happy. All right. So what would make you happy then? Well, I'd like it to go in. Oh, yeah, but you haven't set that as your target. You've just said, I want to get close. So how close is close? So there's a chance it could go in. So why not focus on that? The chances of it going in from that distance are quite slim percentage-wise, but you haven't hit the shot yet. So all your preparation should be aimed at one thing and one thing only, to get the ball in the hole, because that's the aim of the game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And no matter what we say, this is golf is really a mental game. Business actually is a mental game. So the issue we've got, as in every other week, who turns up? As you get onto that green, whether it's the first hole or the last hole, it's what goes on up here that's really the most important. Have you got a process? And remember, rarely are you on a golf course on your own. And I'm not talking about other people on different holes. I'm actually talking about your golf buddies, your mates, that are there encouraging you. You know, oh, you missed that one again. Oh, don't forget the sand's on the right. I mean, how many times do you hear that from your so-called golf buddies? You know, and they're doing it because it's banter. It's just golf banter. But there will be a time where you need to push the banter to one side. Not when you're walking up to the green, you know, have a laugh. Get your elbow in before they get their elbow in, because sure as hell it's going to happen. But when you actually get into taking your shot, that's when the focus really needs to start. You need to push everything to one side, because this is your one chance to putt out. And ideally, we all want a one putt. But if you 2, 3, or even 4, you have to deal with it. I saw a couple of years ago, do you remember Ernie Els on the first hole? The day before he got a birdie, and on, I think it was the Saturday, he hit 7. It could have been more. And it's very famous because it went onto YouTube almost immediately. And the CBS reporter afterwards got hold of him and said, you know, so what went wrong on the first tee? He said, well, you know about golf, don't you? I just had the yips.
Yeah.
This guy, and that's it. The conversation was just, I just had the yips.
Ended, yeah.
We all get the yips, you know.
Yeah.
Our professional golfers, you know, we just have to get on with it. So he said, but then you got a birdie on the next hole. He said, well, I got rid of the yips.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as that, isn't it, really?
It is. I mean, the classic one I heard, which is Seve was a hero to many people in terms of the way he played the game. You know, his creativity. If any golfer was flexible and adaptable with an understanding how you could change during a round of golf, it was Seve Ballesteros. And I remember he was playing in a tournament and he'd 4-putted a green, and he'd fallen out of the lead because he'd 4-putted this green. So he goes into the press tent afterwards, and they're all sitting round, and he comes and sits down, and one of the press guys at the front. So Seve, will you just talk us through that putt on the putts on the 15th green? just tell us what happened. You know, what was going through your head? And Seve just thought for a moment. He says, well, it was really quite simple. And the guy was taken aback that he says Seve said it was really quite simple, you know, because they were trying to build up the emotional element. And Seve, we know, was an emotional golfer. And he says, well, it was really quite simple. He says, I put, I miss, I put, I miss, I put, I miss, I put, I make. Simple.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to end this show. You know, ideally, I put, I make. And that's where we should be focused. And it's simple. The game of golf is really quite simple. And as we say in our kiddies book, it can all be explained by the size of a dimple. That's for another day, because most golfers don't even know the size of a dimple. There's a challenge for you. Do you know
absolutely.
the size of a dimple? Do you know the
Yeah.
diameter of a golf dimple? Well, go and get the measuring stick out. But as I say, that's for another day. Tony, it's been an absolute delight talking with you and our penultimate show for this year. We'll be back next week. And here's a challenge for you, everybody. We want to give you some free coaching in the light of everybody. No one else will be listening, just for you. So give us your question. What question have we perhaps not covered or covered not quite carefully enough for you? What's going through your mind? We would like to try and help you improve your game, and more importantly, improve your performance outside the game. Because as we keep saying, this is not just about golf. It's about you in the workplace, at home, in your social context. It's about helping you perform to your utmost. In MindFit, we call MindFit people, can-do people, are the greatest performers. So the question we have is, are you a can-do? So the questions we want from you will help you become that can-do. Get you over the yips, the EBGBs, you know, the hooks, the swings, and the shanks. Let's help you improve your game of golf. Tony, it's been an absolute delight. We'll see you next week. So it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from me. Goodbye. See you next week.
Cheers.